Hello everybody, in this lesson, we're going to be taking a look at beautiful soup and requests. Now these packages in Python are really useful. These are the two main ones that I used when I was first starting out with web scraping. It can get a lot of what you want done in order to get that information out. Now, of course, there are other packages that you can use that may be a little bit more advanced, but again, this is just the beginner series. In a future series, we'll look at other packages as well that have some more advanced functionality. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to import these packages, and then we're going to get all of the HTML from our website and make sure that it's in a usable state. And then in the next lesson, we're going to kind of query around in the HTML, kind of pick and choose exactly what we want. We'll look at things like tags, variable strings, classes, attributes, and more. So let's get started by importing our packages. What we're going to say is from BS4, this is the module that we're taking it from. We're going to say import, and then we'll do beautiful soup. Then we're going to come down and we're going to say import requests. Now let's go ahead and run this. I'm going to hit Shift Enter, and it works well for me. Now, if this does not work for you, you may potentially need to actually install BS4. So you may have to go to your terminal window and say pip install BS4. I'll just let you Google how to do that if you need to do that, because it's pretty easy. But if you're using Jupyter Notebooks through Anaconda, like how we set it up at the beginning of this Python series, then you should be totally fine. It should be there for you. The next thing that we need to do is specify where we're taking this HTML from. So what we need to actually do is come right over here to our web page, and we need to get the URL. So we're going to go here, we're going to copy this URL, and I'm just going to put it right here for a second. And what we're going to do is we're going to be using this URL quite a bit. So we just want to assign it to a variable. So we'll just say URL is equal to, and then we'll put it right in here. Now we can get rid of that. So now this is our URL going forward. This is where we're going to be pulling data from. Let's go ahead and run this. Now we're going to use requests, and what we're going to do is we're going to say requests.get, and then we're going to put in URL. Now this get function is going to use the request library. It's going to send a get request to that URL, and it's going to return a response object. Let's go ahead and run this. As you can see here, I got a response of 200. If you got something like a 204 or a 400 or 401 or 404, all of these things are potentially bad. Something like a 204 would mean there was no content in the actual web page. 400 means a bad request. So it was invalid, the server couldn't process it, and you don't get any response. If you got a 404, that might be one that you're familiar with. That's an error that means the server cannot be found. The next thing that we're going to do is take the HTML. Now, if you remember, if we come right back here and we inspect this, we have all of this HTML right here. Now on this web page specifically, right now, it's completely static. It's not a bunch of moving stuff or anything like that. But usually when you're looking at HTML, if you're looking at something like Amazon, and those web pages can update, but when you actually pull that into Python, you're basically getting a snapshot of the HTML at that time. So what we're going to do is bring in all of this HTML, which is our snapshot of our website, and then we can take a look at it. So we're going to come right down here, and now we're going to say beautiful soup. So now we'll use the beautiful soup package or library. So when you say beautiful soup, then we're going to do an open parentheses. We're going to do two things. There's two parameters that we need to put in here. First, we need to put in this get request. We actually need to name this, and we'll call this page. We'll say page is equal to, and let's run this. And now we're going to put that page in here. And what we're going to say is dot text. So the page is what's sending that request. And then the dot text is what's retrieving the actual raw HTML that we're going to be using. Then we're going to put a comma here, and what we need to specify is how we're going to parse this information. Now this is an HTML, so what we're going to do is HTML, just like this. This is a standard. This is already built into this library, so we don't need to go any further, but it's basically going to parse the information in an HTML format. Now let's go ahead and run this. Let's see what we get. And as you can see, we have a lot of information. And as we scroll down, I'll try to point out some things that we've already looked at in previous lessons. Something like this TH tag, that should be very similar. That's the title. Then we have these TD tags. And then of course, if we scroll down even further, we'll have things like a TR tag. So these are all things that we looked at in that first lesson when learning about HTML. Now, again, we want to assign this to a variable. So we're going to say soup. That's going to say equal to this information right here. Now, I'm not going to go into all the history behind Beautiful Soup, but what I will say is the guy who created this Beautiful Soup library What he said is that it takes this really messy HTML or XML, which you can also use it for, and it makes it into this kind of beautiful soup. So I just thought that was kind of funny, but that's why we're calling it soup right here. And we're gonna go ahead and run this, and we'll come right down here and we'll say print soup, and let's run it. And now we have everything in here. So we have our HTML, our head, we have some href and some links in here. And let's scroll down a little bit more, and then we have our body right there. And of course, we have a bunch of information in here. Now, in the next lesson, what we're going to be doing is learning how to kind of query all of this to take specific information out and basically understand a lot of what's going on in this HTML to make sure we can actually get what we need. Now, if this looks really kind of messy to you and it just doesn't make a lot of sense, there is one more thing that I'm going to show you, and we'll come right down here. So we'll say soup.prettify. And if you've ever used a different type of programming languages, Prettify is very common in a lot of them, where it'll just make it a little bit more easy to visualize and see. You'll notice that it kind of has this hierarchy built in, whereas if we scroll up, there's no hierarchy built in. It's all just down this left-hand side. So if you kind of want to view it and just kind of visually see the differences, this does help a lot. But it doesn't actually help a lot when you're, querying it or using, find and find all, which is what we're going to look at in the next lesson. So that is our lesson on beautiful soup and requests. In the next two lessons, we're going to be looking at find and find all, as well as really diving into things like variable strings and tags and classes and all those things. And then in the last lesson, we're going to do kind of this mini project where we try to get all the data from this web page that we've been using from that table and put it into a pandas data frame. So thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe below, and I will see you in the next lesson. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video. Today, we're going to be starting our Python web scraping tutorial series. Now, this is more of a continuation of the Python tutorial series, but because we're going to be focusing on web scraping for 3 or 4 videos, I wanted to just make it its own little mini series. In this series, I'm going to show you the basics of web scraping, how to actually look at HTML, how to inspect a web page, how to pull that data in, and then even put it into a CSV file so you can save it and use it. Now in this series, we're just covering the basics, which is a fantastic place to start, but in future series, I'll be going into some of the more advanced web scraping topics as well. So without further ado, let's jump on my screen and get started with web scraping. Now the first thing that we need to learn is HTML. HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language, and it's used to describe all of the elements on a web page. Now, when we actually go to a website and start pulling data and information, we need to know HTML so we can specify exactly what we want to take off of that website. So that's where HTML comes in, and we're going to look at the basics, understanding just the basic structure of HTML. Then we'll go look at a real website, and you'll kind of see that's a little bit more difficult than what we just have right here. But this is the basic building blocks to get to what the HTML actually looks like on a website. Now, this is basically what HTML looks like. We have these angled brackets with things like HTML, head, title, body, and then you'll notice that at the end, we'll have a body, and then we'll have a body at the bottom. This /body denotes that this is the end of the body section in HTML. So everything inside of this is within this body. And so there is this hierarchy within HTML. We have HTML and HTML at the bottom, which encapsulates all the HTML on the website. Then we have things like head, body, and body. Now within these sections, we usually have things like classes, tags, attributes, text, and all these other things that we'll get to in different lessons. But one of the easiest ones to notice and look at are tags, things like a p tag or a title tag. Now within these tags, because this is a super simple example, we have these strings here, my first web page, and this is what's called a variable string. And this is actual text that we could take out of this web page. Now that you understand the super basics of HTML, let's actually go to our website, and I'm going to have a link down below, but it's going to be this one right here. This is basically just a website that you can, practice web scraping on. It's called scrapethissite.com. And what we're going to do is look at the HTML behind this web page, and you can do this on any website that you go on. So we're going to right click. We're going to go down to inspect. Now, right off the bat, this looks a lot more complicated and a lot more complex than the very simple illustration that we were looking at. But let's kind of roll this up just a little bit. You'll notice we have HTML and HTML at the bottom. We have a head, and there is the end of the head, and then a body and the end of the body. So in a super simple sense, it is similar, but just the information that's within it is a lot more difficult. Now, if we look at this title right here, this is our title tag. If we click this little arrow, this is our drop down. You'll notice that here we have this string, hockey teams, forms, searching, and pagination. Now, let's say we didn't want to click on that and go find it. There's something that's super helpful within this inspection page that you can click on right here. It says select an element in the page to inspect it. So we're going to click on that. And as we go through our page, and let's click on this title, it's going to take us to exactly where this is in our HTML. This is extremely helpful, extremely useful. For example, let's say the data I want is down here. I want to take in the Boston Bruins. I can click on it, and it's going to take me to where that is exactly in the HTML. This is where we can start writing our web scraping script to specify, okay, I'm looking for a TR tag. I'm looking for a TD tag. I'm looking for the class called team. This is all information and things that we can use to specify exactly what we want to pull out of our web page. Now, there are other things that we didn't really look at as well in just our simple illustration. Let's come right over here. There's things like hrefs. Now, these are hyperlinks. So if we went and then clicked on this, this is just regular text, but inside of it is this hyperlink, where if we clicked on it, it would take us to another website. And typically that's denoted by this href right here. Then you'll typically see things like a p tag, which usually stands for a paragraph. Now, the last thing that I want to show you while we're here, and we're going to learn a lot more in the next several lessons, but if we come right down here, there is this actual entire table here. And let's try to find this table. And I'm having trouble selecting the entire thing, but let's select this team name. And if we look at this team name, you can see that this is encapsulating the table. So this table tag. Now, these are super helpful because it takes in the entire table. Now, if we wrap this up and we look just at this, it says class table, and then we have the end of this table tag. Now, when we open it, it's going to have all of this information. So as you can see, as I'm highlighting over it, we have these TH tags, then we have these TD tags, and even these TR tags, which is the individual data. And this is something that we'll look at when we're actually scraping all of the data from this table in a future lesson. So this is how we can use HTML, how we can inspect the web page and see exactly what's going on kind of under the hood. And then in future lessons, we'll see how we can use this HTML to specify exactly what data we want to pull out. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe below. I will see you in the next lesson. Hello everybody, in this lesson, we're going to be taking a look at find and find all. Really, we're going to be looking at a ton of different things in this lesson. This is where we really start digging in, seeing how we can extract specific information from our web page. But in order to do that, let's set everything up where we actually bring in the HTML like we did in the last lesson. And we're just going to write all this out one more time just for practice, if nothing else. And then we'll get into actually getting that information from the HTML. So we're going to start by saying from VS4 import beautiful soup. There we go. And import requests. We'll go ahead and run this. Then we're going to come up here, grab our HTML or sorry, our URLs. We'll say URL is equal to, and we'll have that right here. Now we need to say page is equal to, and then we'll do requests.get. And then we'll put in our URL right here. And we're going to come over here and run this. And lastly, we need to say soup. So we'll say soup is equal to beautiful soup. There we go. And then within our parentheses, we need to specify the page.text because we need that. And our parser, which is HTML. And there we go. And let's go ahead and run this. Let's print it out, make sure it's working. And there we go. So we have our soup right here. All this should look really similar to our last lesson. And so now we've brought in our HTML from our page. So we have a lot of information in here. Now, really quickly, let's come over and let's inspect our web page. Now in here, we have a ton of information, right? We have a bunch of different tags and classes and all these other things, but how do we actually use these? Well, that's where the find and find all is going to come into play. And they're pretty similar, and you'll see that in just a little bit. But let's say we want to take one of these tags, and let's come down. Let's say we just want to take this div tag. Now, there's going to be a lot of different div tags in our HTML, but let's just come right here. Let's go down, and let's say we're going to call soup. We're going to say soup. That's all of our information. We're going to say dot find. Now, within our parentheses, we can specify a lot of different things, but we're going to keep it really simple right now. We're just going to say div. Let's go ahead and run this. What this is going to bring up is the very first div tag in our HTML, and that's going to be this information right here. Now, let's copy this, and we're going to do the exact same thing, except we're going to say find underscore all. Now let's run this. Now we're going to have a ton more information. Really, all find and find all do is that they find the information. Now, find is only going to find the first response in our HTML at least. That's the div class container. Let's go back up to the top. That's our div class container. But find all is going to find all of them. So it'll put it in this list for you. So it's going to have this first one, and it goes down to this /div, which should be right here. And then we have a comma, which separates our next div tag. So that is how we can use it. Now, what if we want to specify one of these div tags? We pulled in a ton of them, but we want to just look for one of them. Well, this is something where the class comes in handy, because right now we have class is equal to container, class is equal to colmd-12. I don't know what these are off the top of my head, but usually they'll be somewhat unique, and we can use these to help us specify what we're looking for. For example, just kind of glancing at this, we could also use this a tag if we wanted to look at this. So we could say, oh, we're looking for these hrefs. So we have an href here, and in this right down here, we have this href as well, which again, if you remember from a previous lesson, that stands for a hyperlink. Now, something like the class or the href or these IDs, these are all attributes. So we can specify or kind of filter down based off of these. Now let's try it. So what we can do is we can do class first, and this is kind of the default within something like find all, is you can even do class underscore. We can come right back up. We have this div, and then here's our class. So again, we have to have the div and the class. If we took this a tag, this is an a tag, which would go right here with the class of something like navlink or something like navlink again down here. We need to specify that more. But we have our div, so we'll say colmd-12 right here. And let's go ahead and run this. And now it's going to pull in just that information. Now we're still getting a list because we have multiple of these. So this div class colmd-12 doesn't just happen once. If we scroll down, we'll see it multiple times, something like right here. Or actually, let me see right here. So here's this comma, then here's our next one. So we have two of these div tags with a class of col-md-12. And in each of these, we have different information. This looks like a paragraph with this p tag right here. And let's scroll back up. So I also think we should try out doing something like this p tag. Typically, these p tags stand for paragraphs or they have text information in them. Let's try to p tag really quickly and let's just see what we get. And let's run this. And it looks like we get multiple p tags. Now, if we come back here, you can see that there's this information and it's this information that we're pulling in. And I'm just noticing that from right here. And then we have this information right here. And it looks like there's one more, which is this href, which looks like this open source. So data via, and then that hyperlink or that link right there. So we have three different p tags. Now, just to verify and make sure that that's correct, what we could do is come over here. We're going to click on this paragraph, and it's going to take us to that p tag where the class is equal to lead. Let's come over here and look at this paragraph. Now we have another p tag right over here where the class is equal to glyphicon/education. I have no idea what that means. And then we'll go to our last one, which is right here, where the p tag is equal to, we have a tag, href, class, and a bunch of other information. So let's say we just wanted to pull in this paragraph right here. Let's go here and see how we can specify this information. So it looks like p, where the class is equal to lead, that looks like it's going to be unique to just that one. So if we come down here, we're going to say comma. and it was class. So you can do class underscore is equal to, and then we're going to say lead. Let's try running this. And we're just pulling in that information. Now, let's say we actually want to pull in this paragraph. We actually want this text right here. And this is a very real use case. Let's say I'm trying to pull in some information or a paragraph of text. Well, let's copy this. And what we're going to then do is say dot text. And let's run this. Now we're going to get an error right here. And this is a very common error because we're trying to use find all. Unfortunately, find all does not have a text attribute. We actually need to change this to find. Typically, when I'm working with these find and find alls, I'm using find all most of the time until I want to start extracting text. Then when I specify it, I'll change this back to find just like this. Now let's try this. And now we're getting in parentheses this information. Now, this is all wonky. It needs to definitely be cleaned up a little bit. But if we go back up, it's no longer in a list, and we no longer have things like these p tags in here or this class attribute. So we're really just trying to pull out this information. Now, again, this does not look perfect. We could even try to do something like dot strip. Look like there's some white space. That cleans it up a little bit. This definitely looks a little better. And we could definitely go in here and clean this up more. But just for an example, this is how we can then extract that information. Now let's look at one more example. This is some information, and this is what we're going to do kind of our little mini project in the next lesson on. Let's say we wanted to take all this information. Well, what if we wanted to pull in something like the team name? Well, that's going to be in right here in this TR tag. And each of these TR tags have TH tags underneath them. So if we scroll down, you'll notice that each row is this TR tag. So let's go ahead and search for, let's do TH. Let's just search for that first. So let's come right back up here. Let's use this find all, and we'll get rid of this text for right now. And let's just say we want to look for the TR. Is that what we said we were looking for? No, TH. So let's say we're looking for TH. Let's go ahead and run this. So we're going to have underneath this TH, we have team name, year, wins, losses. And notice these are all the titles. So these titles are the only ones with these TH tags. If we go down, you'll notice that the data is actually TD tags. So now let's go back and look for TD. We'll say D. And this is going to be a lot longer. We have a lot of information, but these are all the rows of data. Let's see if we can just get one piece of this data. We're going to get back. We want just this team name. That's all we're trying to pull in for now. And then we'll try to get this row. And then in the next lesson, we're going to try to get all of this information, make it look really nice, and then we'll put it into a pandas data frame. So let's just get this team name right now. Let's go ahead. We're going to say TH. Let's run this. And we have this TH. And now that we know we're getting this information in, we can do find. Let's run this. So there's our team name. I'm just going to say dot text. And again, we can do dot strip just like that. And bam, we have our team name. So you can kind of start getting the idea of how we're pulling this information out. We're really just specifying exactly what we're seeing in this HTML. And what's really, really helpful, and it's something that I do all the time, is I'm inspecting it. I'm just kind of searching like, what do I want? What piece of information do I want? Then I go ahead and click on it. And then I'm looking, where is this sitting in the hierarchy? It's within the body. It's within this table with the class of table. Then it's down here where this TR tag and then this TD tag. So I'm looking kind of at the hierarchy and I'm specifying exactly what I'm looking for. So that is what we're going to look at in today's lesson. That's how we can use find and find all. We were able to look at classes and tags and attributes and variable strings, which is this right here, getting that text, and variable strings. And we will look at find and find all and how it's pulling that information in and how we can specify exactly what we're looking for. Now in the next lesson, which is definitely going to be the most exciting one, we're going to try to pull in all of this information. So every single thing, because we'll be able to put all this information into a data frame, which then we can use pandas to really search and manipulate that data within that data frame. So with that being said, that is the end of this lesson. If you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe. I will see you in the next lesson. Hello everybody, in this lesson, we're going to be scraping data from a real website and putting it into a pandas data frame and maybe even exporting it to CSV if we're feeling a bit spicy. Now, in the last several lessons, we've been looking at this page right here. And I even promised that we were going to be pulling this data, but as I was building out the project, I honestly thought it was a little bit too easy since in the last lesson, we kind of already pulled out some information from this table and I want to kind of throw you guys off. So we're going to be pulling from a different table. We're going to be going on to Wikipedia and looking at the list of the largest companies in the United States by revenue. And we're going to be pulling all of this information. So if you thought this was going to be easy and a little mini project, it's now a full project because why not? So let's get started. What we're going to do is we're going to import Beautiful Soup and requests. We're going to get this information and we're going to see how we can do this. And it's going to get a little bit more complicated, a little bit more tricky. We're going to have to, format things properly to get it into our pandas data frame to make it looking good and making it more usable. So let's go ahead and get rid of this easy table. We don't want that one. And we're going to come in here and we're just going to start off. This should look really familiar by now. We're going to say from BS4 import Beautiful Soup. I don't know if you've noticed, but I've messed up spelling Beautiful Soup in every single video. I've noticed. Let's run this. And now we need to go ahead and get our URL. So let's come up here. Let's get our URL. Say URL is equal to, and we'll just keep it all in the same thing really quickly because we know this by heart by now, right? We'll say request.get and then URL to make sure that we're getting that information. It'd give us a response object. Hopefully it'll be 200. That'll mean a good response. And then we'll say soup is equal to, and then we'll say Beautiful Soup, and we'll do our page.text. Now we're pulling in the information from this URL. And then we use our parser, which will be, HTML. And let's go ahead and run this. Looks like everything went well. Let's print our soup. Now this is completely new to you. It's completely new to me. I don't know what I'm doing, but it looks like we're pulling in the information. Am I right? So we got a lot of things going for us. The stuff was imported properly. We got our URL. We got our soup, which is not beautiful in my opinion, but let's keep on rolling. Let's come right down here. Now what we need to do is we need to specify what data we're looking for. So let's come and let's inspect this web page. Now, the only information that we're going to want is right in here. We're going to want these titles or these headers. Whoops. So we're going to want rank, name, industry, etc. And then we are for sure going to want all of this information. Let's just scroll down, see if there's anything tricky in here. All right, that looks pretty good. And then there is another table. So there's not just one table in here. There are two tables in this page. So that might change things for us, but let's come right back and let's inspect our page by using this little button right here. And let's specify let's see if I can highlight just this page. Oh, it's not gonna, let's do that right there. So now we have this wiki table sorter. Now I'm gonna actually come right here. I'm gonna copy and I'm just gonna say, copy the outer HTML. I'm just gonna paste it in here real quick. And that's a ton of information. I didn't think it was gonna copy all of it. And we're just gonna delete that. I just wanted to keep that class because I wanted to then come right down here at the bottom and just see what this table looks like. I don't know if it's part of it or if it's its own table. I can't tell. Let's look at this rank and let's come up. So it says it's under this table and it looks like it's its own table, but it says wiki table sortable jQuery table sorter. Wikipedia sortable jQuery table sorter. So it looks like there are two tables with the same class, which shouldn't be a problem if we're using find to get our text, because we should be taking the first one, which will be this table. And this is the table we want. And if we wanted this one, we could just use find all. And since it's a list, we could use indexing to pull this table, right? But I think we're going to be okay with just pulling in this one. So let's go ahead and let's do our find. So we'll do soup.find, and we could find all, or we could just do find table. Let's just try this and see what we get. And if it pulls in the right one that we're looking for, that'd be great. Now this does not look correct at all. I don't know what table it's pulling in. Oh, maybe it's this right here. This might be a table. Yeah, it is. So we have this box more citations. So actually we are going to have to do exactly like what I was talking about. Let's pull this, and we could do comma class right here, and let's do both. You know what? This is a learning opportunity. Let's do both. So let me go back up to the top because I need these. And what we're going to do, let's come right down here. I want to add in another thing. Actually, I'll just push this one up. There we go. So we're going to say find underscore all. Let's run this. So now we have multiple. And again, we got that weird one first, but if we scroll down, here's our comma. And then here's our wiki table sortable. And then we have rank, name, industry, all the ones that we were hoping to see. And I guarantee you, if we scroll all the way to the bottom, we're going to see potentially Wells Fargo, Goldman Sachs. I'm pretty sure those are, let's see. Yeah, here we go. Like Ford Motor, Wells Fargo, Goldman Sachs. That's this table right here. So now we're looking at the third table. But again, this is a list. So we can use indexing on this. And we'll just choose not position 0, because that's this one right here, which we did not like. Well, now we'll take position 1. Let's run this. Let's go back up to the top. And this is our table right here. Rank, name, industry. This is the information that we were actually wanting. Just to confirm, rank, name, industry, etc. So this is the information we're wanting, and we're able to specify that with our find all. And this is the information we want. So we now want to make this the only information that we're looking at. So I'm just going to copy this. We didn't need to use our class for this one. You probably could have, but we could. So let's actually put this right down here. This will be our table. We'll say equal to, but then I'll come right here and I'm going to say soup.find. And this is just for demonstration purposes. We'll do table, comma, class underscore is equal to, and then we'll look at this right here. Whoops, do this. And let's see if we get the correct output. And let's run this. And it looks like we're getting a none type object. If I remember, it looks like the actual class is this right here. So let's run this instead. And I got to get rid of the index. There we go. Okay, so we were able to pull it in just using the find. So the find table class, and it says wiki table sortable. At least that's the HTML that we're pulling in right here. Let me go back because I don't know if that's what I was seeing earlier. Let's just get this rank. Let's go back up. Oh, where's the rank? Go rank. There we go. So here's our rank, and let's go up to the table, and there's our class. Yeah, and that's just, to me, that's a little bit odd. So it says wiki table sortable jQuery dash table sorter right here. But in our actual Python script that we're running, it was only pulling in the wiki table sortable. So it wasn't pulling in the jQuery dash table sorter. Why? I'm not 100% sure, but all things that we're working through and we were able to figure out. So we're going to make this our table. We're going to say tables equal to soup.findAll. And let's run this. And if we print out our table, we have this table. Now this is our only data that we are looking at. Now the first thing that I want to get is I want to get these titles or these headers right here. That's what we're going to get first. So let's go in here. We can just look in this information. You can see that these are with these TH tags, and we can pull out those TH tags really easily. Let's come right down here. We're just going to say TH, and we can get rid of this. And let's run this. Now these are our only TH tags because everything else is a TR tag for these rows of data. So these TH tags are pretty unique, which makes it really easy, which is really great because then we can just do world underscore titles is equal to, So now we have these titles, but they're not perfect. But what we're going to do is we're going to loop through it. So I'm going to say world underscore titles, and I'll kind of walk through what I'm talking about. This is in a list, and each one is within these TH tags. So TH, and then there's our string that we're trying to get. So we can easily take this list and use list comprehension, and we can do that right down here. So I'm going to keep this where we can see it. We'll do world underscore table underscore titles. That's equal to, now we'll do our list comprehension. It should be super easy. We'll just say for title in world underscore titles. And then what do we want? We want title dot text. That's it. Because we're just taking the text from each of these. We're just looping through and we're getting rank. Then we're looping through, getting name, looping through, getting industry. That's it. So let's go and print our world table titles and see if it worked. And it did. This looks like it needs to be cleaned up just a little bit. So let's go ahead and do that while we're here before we actually put it into the pandas data frame. Oops, I just wanted this actually. So what we're going to do is try to get rid of those \ns. If we do dot strip, that may actually not work. Yeah, because this is a list. What we need to do is we can actually do it dot text dot strip right here. Let's try to do it in there. There we go. So now we have this, and now this world tables is good to go. Now I'm actually noticing one thing that may be odd. Yeah, so we have rank name industry, it goes to headquarters, but then in here we're getting rank name industry and then the profits, which is from this table right here, which we don't want. Let's scroll back up. Now let's kind of backtrack this and see where this happened. We did find all table. We're looking at the first one, right? And then we're doing headquarters. So we're doing print table. Okay. I think I found the issue here. And let's backtrack again. We're working through this together. We're going to make mistakes. The table is what we actually wanted to do. We just did soup.findAllTH, which is going to pull in that secondary table. Geez, we were not thinking here. So now we need to do find all on the table, not the soup, because now we were looking at all of them. Oh, what a rookie mistake. Okay, let's go back. Now let's look at this. Now it's just down to headquarters. Okay, let's go ahead and run this. Let's run this. Now we just have headquarters. Now let's run this. Now we are sitting pretty. Okay, excuse my mistakes. Hey, listen, if it happens to me, it happens to you. I promise you. This is a project. This is a little project we're creating here. So we're gonna run into issues, and that's okay. We're figuring it out as we go. Now, what I want to do before we start pulling in all the data is I want to put this into our pandas data frame. We'll have the headers there for us to go, so we won't have to get that later, and it just makes it easier in general. Trust me. So we're going to import pandas as PD. Let's go ahead and run this. And now we're going to create our data frame. So we'll say PD dot. Now we have these world table titles. So what we're going to do is PD dot data frame. And then in here for our columns, we'll say that's equal to the world table titles. And let's just go ahead and say that's our data frame and call our data frame right here. Let's run it. There we go. So we were able to pull out and extract those headers and those titles of these columns. We're able to put it into our data frame. So we're set up and we're ready to go. We're rocking and rolling. The next thing we need, let's go back up. Next thing we need is to start pulling in this data right here. So we have to see how we can pull this data in. Now, if you remember that we had those TH tags, those were our titles. As you can see, I'm highlighting over it. But down here, now we have these TD tags, and those are all encapsulated within a TR tag. So these TR represent the rows, right? Then the D represents the data within those rows. So R for rows, D for data. So let's see how we can use that in order to get the information that we want. So let's go back up here. Just going to take this because, again, we're only pulling from table, not soup, not soup. What were we thinking? And let's go ahead and let's look at TR. Let's run this. Now, when we're doing this TR, these do come in with the headers. So we're going to have to later on, we're going to have to get rid of these. We don't want to pull those in and have that as part of our data. But if we scroll down, there's our Walmart. We have the location. These are all with these TD tags. And then, of course, it's separated by a comma. Then we have our TD2. So above, we had our TD1. So row 1, row 2, row 3, all the way down. Now, we will easily be able to use this, right? Because this is our column data. And we can even call it that. Column underscore data is equal to, well, we'll run that. And what we're going to do is we're going to loop through that because it was all in a list. So we're going to loop through that information, but instead of looking at the TR tag, we're going to look at the TD tag. So let's come right down here. We'll say for the row in column row, and we'll do a colon. Now we need to loop through this. We'll do something like row.find underscore all. And then what are we looking for? We're not looking for the TR, we're looking for the TD. And just for now, let's print this off, see what this looks like. Apparently I didn't run this. Column data, that's why. And let's run this. And what we actually need to do is something almost exactly like this. And I'm going to put it right below it. Instead of printing this off, because again, this is all in a list, we're using find all, so we're printing off another list, which isn't actually super helpful. For each of all these data that we're pulling in, what we can do is we can call this the row underscore data, and then we'll put the row data in here. So we'll say for, and we'll say in row data. So we'll just say for the data in row data, and then we'll take the data, we'll exchange that. And now instead of world table titles, we can change this into individual row data, right? And now let's print off the individual row data. So it's the exact same process that we were doing up here. And that's how we cleaned it up and got this. And we may not need to strip, but let's just run this and see what we get. There we go. In strip, I'm sure was helpful. Let's actually get rid of this. Yeah, strip was helpful. It's the exact same thing that happened on the last one. So let's keep that actually. Let's run this. And now let's just kind of glance at this information. Let's look through it. This looks exactly like the information that's in the table. Let's just confirm with this first one. 572.754 2.4 2300. 572.754 2.4 2300. So this looks exactly correct. Now we have to figure out a way to get this into our table. Because again, these are all individual lists. It's not like we're just, putting all of this in at one time. We can't just take the entire table and plop it into the data frame. We need a way to kind of put this in one at a time. Now, if you're just here for web scraping and you haven't taken like my pandas series, that's totally fine. That's not what we're here for anyways. But what we can do, we'll have our individual row data and we're going to put it in kind of one at a time. Now, the reason we have to do that is because when we had it like this, and let's go back, when we had it like this, it's printing out all of it. But what it's really doing, and let's get rid of it. What it's really doing is it's kind of doing it like this. It's printing it off one at a time, and it's only going to save that current row of data, this last one. It's only going to save that as it's looping through. So what we actually want to do is every time it loops through, we append this information onto the data frame. So as it goes through, and eventually it's going to end up with this one, but as it goes through, let's run this. As it goes through, it puts this one in. And then the next time it loops through, it puts this one in. And the next time it loops through, et cetera, all the way down. So let's see how we can do this. So we have our data frame right here. Let's get rid of this. Let's bring our data frame in. Now, again, like I just mentioned, if you don't know pandas and you haven't learned that, go take my series on that. It's really good. And we do something very similar to this in that series. So I'm not going to kind of walk through the entire logic, but there is something called LOC, which stands for location when you're looking at the index on a data frame. And we're going to use that to our advantage. So we're going to say the length of the data frame. So we're looking at how many rows are in this data frame. And then we're going to say that's our length. Then we're going to take that length and use it when we're actually putting in this new information. Pretty cool. So we're going to say df.loc and then a bracket, and we're putting in that length. So we're checking the length of our data frame each time it's looping through, and then we're going to put the information in the next position. That's exactly what we're doing. Let's go ahead and put in the individual row data. So let's just recap. We're looping through this TR. This is our column data. So these TR, that's our row of data. Then as we're looping through it, we're doing find all and looking for TD tags. That's our individual data. So that's our row data. Then we're taking that data, each piece of data, and we're getting out the text and we're stripping it to kind of clean it. And now it's in a list for each individual row. Then we're looking at our current data frame, which has nothing in it right now. We're looking at the length of it, and we're appending each row of this information into the next position. So let's go ahead and run this. It's working, it's thinking, and it looks like we got an issue. Cannot set a row with mismatched columns. Now we're encountering an issue, not one that I got earlier, but we're gonna cancel this out. We're gonna figure this out together. So let's print off our individual row data. Let's look at this. This one is empty. This is, I'm almost certain, is probably the issue. I didn't encounter this issue when I wrote these, when I wrote this lesson, but I'm almost certain that this is the issue right here. So let's do the column data, but let's start at position. Let's try 1 and not parentheses. I need brackets because this is a list, right? So it should work. And there we go. So now that first one's gone. So now we just have the information. I didn't even think about that just a second ago, but I'm glad we're running into it in case you ran into that issue. Let's go ahead and try this again. And it looked like it worked. So let's pull our data frame down. I could have just wrote DF. Let's pull our data frame down. And now this is looking fantastic. Now, these 3 dots just mean there's information in there, just doesn't want to display it. But it looks like we have our rank, we have our name, we have the industry, revenue growth, employees, and headquarters for every single one. So this is perfect. Now this is exactly what I was hoping to get. Now you can go in and use pandas and manipulate this and change it and dive into all the information in there. But we can also export this into a CSV if that's what you're wanting. So we could easily do that by saying, we'll do df.to_CSV. And then within here, we're just going to do R and specify our file path. So let's come down here to our file path. Then we'll go to our folder for our output. So we're just going to take this path and let me do it like that. So I have this path in my OneDrive documents, Python web scraping folder for output. So, I already made this. And I'm just going to put this right down here. Now I do have to specify what we're going to call this. We'll just call this companies. And then we have to say .csv. That is very important. Now, if we run this, I already know just because we have this rank and this index here, we're going to keep this index in the output. Not great, but let's run it. Let's look at our output. There's our companies. And when we pull this up, as you can see, this is not what we want because we have this extra thing right here. Now, if we're automating this, this would get super annoying. So what we're going to do is go back and just say index equals false. Let's go out of here. And now we're just going to come right down here. We're going to say comma index equals false. And so it's going to take this index and it's not going to import or actually export it into the CSV. Now let's go ahead and run this. Let's pull up our folder one more time. And let's refresh just to make sure. Should be good. And now this looks a lot better. So we're able to take all of that information and put it into a CSV and it's all there. So this is the whole project. So if we scroll all the way back up, let's just kind of glance at what we did here. Scroll down. We brought in our libraries and packages. We specified our URL. We brought in our soup. And then we tried to find our table. Now that took a little bit of testing out, but we knew that the table was the second one. So in position 1, so we took that table. We were also able to specify it using find, but then we used the class. And of course, we just wanted to work with that table. That's all the data we wanted. So we specified this is our table and we worked with just our table going forward. Of course, we encountered some small issues, user errors on my end, but we were able to get our world titles and we put those into our data frame right here using pandas. Then next, we went back and we got all the row data and the individual data from those rows, and we put it into our pandas data frame. Then we came below and we exported this into an actual CSV file. So that is how we can use web scraping to get data from something like a table and put it into a pandas data frame. I hope that this lesson was helpful. I know we encountered some issues. That's on my end and I apologize. But if you run into the same issues, hopefully that helped. But I hope this was helpful. And if you like this, be sure to like and subscribe below. I appreciate you. I love you. And I will see you in the next lesson.